Hello, History Class 711. If you may recall, in 2002, the French government opposed U.S. efforts to obtain a United Nations mandate to use military forces against Iraq in 2002. The consequence was a sort of standoff between the two nations. Americans looked less favorable upon the French and vice versa. However, another consequence was that the house cafeteria renamed their French fries to freedom fries. Now you may ask yourself why in a doctoral course about Western freedoms is someone bringing up freedom fries. I think the story does highlight something interesting about America. We love our freedom or our freedoms. However, we tend to hear freedom and liberty interchangeable. And like so many things in the modern world, we tend to take these things for granted. So today's video is going to try to answer or differentiate between freedom and liberty, and hopefully point out that they are similar, but not the same. John Locke, for example, has articulated, we must consider the state that all people are in naturally, that this is a state of perfect freedom, of acting and disposing of their own possessions and persons as they think fit within the bounds of the law of nature. Aristotle had a similar view of freedom. For example, he emphasized rational self-determination and rational self-direction. However, this is where we can now begin to differentiate, as there are some grounds for fear of a perfect and absolute freedom, especially in the Hobbes sense. As Hobbes articulated in chapter 13 of the Leviathan, that because of three main reasons, competitions, fear, and glory, at any point someone, or more likely a group being stronger power or mind, might deprive another person not only of the fruit of their labor, but also of their life and liberty. Now for liberty, I think it's important to differentiate between two types, being positive and negative. As Berlin and Pitkin both touch upon, positive liberty is the freedom to act upon one's free will, for example, being democratic self-government, self-mastery, or self-improvement. A good example of this can be found in Milton's work. Hannon articulates that for Milton, liberty was not an absence of rules, but liberty rather meant the freedom that comes from the virtuous and informed exercise of independent judgment. However, positive liberty rests very heavily upon negative liberty. Negative liberty, therefore, is the freedom from external restraints. John Mills touches upon this in his On Liberty in 1869. He suggests that the patriots set limits to the power which the ruler should be suffered to exercise over the community, and that this limitation was what they meant by liberty. It was attempted in two ways. First, by obtaining the recognition of certain immunities, which were called political liberties or rights. It was to be regarded as a breach of duty if the ruler was to infringe upon these rights and liberties. If he did infringe, specific resistance or general rebellion was to be held justifiable. The second was the establishment of constitutional checks. John Locke also touches upon this when he articulates that the liberty of man and society is to be under no other legislative power but that established by consent and the Commonwealth. Arendt in On Revolution, for example, adds, with liberty one is free from oppression, especially from the state. However, one is not free, period. For example, when Kennedy was writing about the Roman historians who articulated that freedom is not merely freedom from external inference, it is freedom from the will of others. In the classical social contract sense, a society then chooses to form together, give up their full freedom for the protection of the government. But there is negative liberty inherent in the formation of that government, as government should not interfere with the natural rights of its citizens. In closing, I will end with a quote from Edmund Burke, who articulated that the revolution was made to preserve our ancient and indisputable laws and liberties, and that the ancient constitution of government, which is our only security for law and liberty. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye now.